A very, very quick book sharing. Did any of you go to the International Book Exhibition held recently? Who did? Oh, just a few of you. Okay, I think you all must be book addicts. I don't know how you could resist something like that. I spent quite a bit of time there on the day that I went, and the one place that drew me, that attracted me the most was the Hong Kong Guan, 那个香港馆. And I found 3 books about Chinese there that I think are really worth knowing about. A lot of time publications are either very 俗, they're for an ordinary audience, or they're very, very 专门, for a very, very special technical audience, right? Books often don't fall somewhere in between. Either they're too easy and too popular, or they're too technical and they're totally boring and nobody wants to read them. They're mainly good for helping somebody get a promotion at a university or just addressing a very, very small number of people. But there's a very, very important place in the middle that I think we should all pay attention to, because you all have your specialty now, or you're developing a specialty, and you need to reach people with what you learn in order to benefit the most people. Very often, we just reach a few people here or a lot of people here with something that's very, very popularist. There's a huge educated, informed public that likes to learn new things. And these books, I think, address that group of the public. There are 3 books about the Chinese language. Now, maybe some of you have found that you've learned things about Chinese in this class that you didn't know before from a foreigner, right? You've learned things about Chinese that you didn't know before. Your Chinese is native-like, it's better than mine in many ways, but there are things that I know about Chinese because I had to learn it as a foreigner. I had to start from nothing, from scratch, and learn it bit by bit. And that way I learned things about it that a native speaker won't know because you learned it as a child and you take it for granted. However, it really benefits us to know a lot about our native language, about ourselves and about our native language. And like I said, I didn't know that much about English either until I heard Taiwan students' mistakes. And I thought, we don't say it that way. How do we say it? And then slowly I figured out some of the rules. So here are books that address that. And the first one in the series is most relevant to this class. It's called 汉语语音趣说. Now when you see 趣, don't you get a little excited? That it's not so dry and so difficult and so technical. And I looked through it. I have not read it carefully yet, but I've looked through it and it looks pretty good. It gives you a pretty good overview of basic things you should know about Chinese phonetics. That's the first one. The second one is 词汇趣说. In fact, my own area of research is morphology, as I've told you before. This one really appealed to me, and I thought if somebody's written about this for a popular audience, I need to see this because that's what I write about more technically. And this is 汉语词汇趣说. It's vocabulary of Chinese, but it talks about morphology. Vocabulary and morphology go together. That's the second one. And then the third one, I think, is also really, why don't you, give it to someone else first. The third one is also potentially very useful to you because this is the part that people keep telling you doesn't exist in Chinese. 中文没有文法, you keep hearing that, and it's not true. You now know it's not true. Chinese is a very information value-based language. You have to know what's important. That comes at the end. Background comes at the beginning. That which is modified comes at the end. It is a right-headed language. Recently, I went to a talk by a Japanese who said Chinese is a left-headed language. I said, how do you define head? What is your basis for this? We didn't get a chance to talk about it. The word head very quickly has 2 very different meanings that you're going to see, and it's going to confuse you if you're not aware of this. The original meaning written down by Leonard Bloomfield is that which is modified. 被修饰的部分就是 head. 就这样子. For example, the red house, what's the head? House is head, right. But a lot of sentences don't have a head. If 没有被修饰的东西的话, 它就是没有 head. For example, the house. We don't really have, you can't really say that there's a particular head because nothing's modifying it. That's the original meaning of the 所谓的 functionalists and the structuralists. Later on, the Chomsky people said it's the part that's most representative of a phrase, of a sentence. And For example, the house, going back to the house, they started out thinking that which part was the most representative of that phrase. House, right? Later on, they changed it. They said it's the determiner. It's a determiner phrase. So they changed it. What is the problem with this? Which one is more objective and which one is more subjective? Wendy? Sorry? Okay, let's start with the first one. The big red house. 被修饰的部分 is the head. Is there going to be any 争议 about which part is the modified part of that phrase? 有没有任何争议? 100% of the people agree. But when you say which part is the most important part of the phrase, the red house, is it house or is it the? Is that objective or subjective? It's totally subjective. And that's something that seemingly has not been discovered in Chomsky linguistics. You can change what you think is important very easily because important itself is a subjective adjective. It means, what is important to me at this moment? Well, maybe I'm very, very hungry, so food is important, right? But then a little bit later, I'm full. Is food so important to me now? No, entertainment is important. I want to sit down and digest my food and watch TV. So important is not an objective. It cannot be used to describe something objective. Important is just what you feel is important at the moment for your own purposes. So for things like this, there's a lot of confusion. In addition to native speakers not knowing a lot about their own language because they take it for granted, there's a lot of what I call nonsense out there. It makes no sense. Chinese is a left-headed language. Well, you define head differently. What's important in a phrase? I'm sorry, that's all subjective. But Chinese, if you use head as meaning that which is modified, Chinese is 100% right-headed. 被修饰的东西永远是在右边。Okay, 红色的大房子，大房子 is at the end. How about the house I like? Right. Where does the head go? At the right. It's 100% of the time. It doesn't matter what you do in English. You can use a modifying 关系代名词的那个子句放在那个名词被修饰名词的后面，对不对？ So the house I like, the house which I like, 那是放在后面。所以英文不是一个100% right-headed language, but Chinese is. No matter what, Chinese is right-headed. So I haven't read through this one yet either. Okay, I've just gotten these recently. But this will definitely give you some good ideas about Chinese, things to think about, and some ideas about what a grammar of Chinese might look like, since native speakers have a hard time really describing their own language. Yeah?
When we say left-handed and right-handed, how do we define? What's the base? Should the direction based on the writing direction of English or that's language? Because traditionally we write Chinese from the right to the left.
From up to down.
Yes.
Yeah, before right to left, it was up to down. Has nothing, zero to do with writing. Nothing to do with writing. When you're doing linguistics, you'll hear your linguistics teachers tell you to throw out writing completely. That's not really fair, because there are a lot of things about writing that tell us a lot about language. But when we're talking about grammar, writing has zero relevance, zero. However, the order of the elements in a sentence do have relevance. So when you're speaking, 不管怎么样, house is going to come out last. By right and left, we're just talking about 先后. Which one is spoken first? But that's a good question. So this will give you some background on the grammar of your native language. All right, so that was just a quick book sharing from the recent book exhibition. Next, we're going to have, in addition to going over Chapter 2 of Vowels and Consonants, by going over I mean just fielding questions. Remember to have your questions ready. Don't start paging through your notes in your book. Have them ready the minute you're in the classroom on Wednesday for Vowels and Consonants, Chapter 2. In addition to that, we're going to have our first dictation. All right? The first one you may not do well, but you also, on the other hand, you might do well. I'm going to use made-up data, which I tell you I don't like. Remember last semester I told you 我不喜欢那种自己随便编的那种 data, 我比较不喜欢。 However, I do use it when we're just learning new sounds because I will give you simple syllable structures. For example, pa, ba, ah. All right? That's sort of what you'll hear in the dictation on Wednesday. We're going to cover ejectives and possibly implosives. I may stick with just one sound type so that we can ease into it a bit so you don't get too much confusion right away. So it'll probably be ejectives, possibly implosives, but more likely just ejectives on Wednesday with made-up data, so it will be simple. It will be just CV structure, consonant-vowel structure. Okay? And that's it. We're going to continue in our book and concentrate on getting through chapter 6. So, Carol, you've agreed to go first? Of course. All right, go ahead. Everybody find the place, by the way. We're on 144, and it's the first complete paragraph. 144. Everybody there? It's the second paragraph, but it's the first complete paragraph.
The easiest click to starting it's the gentle kiss with pursed lip type.
With pursed?
With pursed lips type.
That's right. All right. Sorry to stop you after one sentence, but first of all, the easiest, it's better to say the with a word that starts with a vowel, the other, the egg, the airplane, the easiest. Remember to pronounce it the. Sometimes there's a little glide in there, the easiest, or just pull them together. However, more and more people now say the easiest. That's the first point. The second point is you notice, and this is about writing, like Jerome was just asking about, you see a whole bunch of hyphens before type. This has nothing directly to do with phonetics, but a little bit actually. You see a bunch of hyphens between the words, gentle kiss with pursed lips. What are the hyphens there for? Why do we use hyphens?
We make those words adjectives.
That's right. We make them into an adjective that comes before the noun head that they are modifying. Here we can use head. This is the noun head that they're modifying. Even using the same words to describe type, we would take out the hyphens if they came after the noun. For example, this is a click of the type that involves, that is like a gentle kiss with pursed lips. So if we put it after the noun, we don't use the hyphens. Now, it does still have something to do with phonetics, a little bit, because when we see one of these compound adjectives with the words connected by hyphens, how will we read them? So listen to me read the two for comparison. Is the gentle kiss with pursed lips type? And is the type that is like a gentle kiss with pursed lips? Now, it does relate to phonetics. What was the difference between the two ways I read those two phrases? Do you want to hear it again? The first one is the gentle kiss with pursed lips type. The second is the type that is much like a gentle kiss with pursed lips.
The first type you raise the top, it's like with pursed lips types. The second one is with pursed lips.
In both of them, lips is a tonic. So you're saying they're different in that way, but in fact, in that way, they're the same, right?
But the first one we don't stress on type.
That's true. That's true. We don't stress type because it becomes the head of a compound noun, right? One more thing, at least. One more time. Is the gentle kiss with pursed lips type, or is the type like a gentle kiss with pursed lips? The hyphens give you a clue. It's faster, right? And you thought that was just 方便，就是偶然比较 fast， 不是。Because we've got all of those hyphens and because it has formed a single, basically, compound adjective, we read it quickly. It's all part of the same unit. But after type, it becomes a separate phrase entirely. It becomes syntactic. 一个是 morphological, 是构词的，是属于构词层次。另外一个是属于语法、文法的层次。So which one will we read more slowly? The one that belongs to which layer? the syntax layer because it's a higher level of analysis, you could say that. Okay? And the units in a syntactic phrase, are they more coherent or less coherent? Are they more independent or less independent? If they are units of a syntactic phrase. They're more independent, a little bit less coherent. Of course they cohere. But one of them we could put in a dictionary if we wanted to. It's a little strange to put in a dictionary because it was just invented on the spot. It's very ad hoc, right? We have two words that are worth knowing. Ad hoc, remember we talked about this last semester when we were talking about transcription systems? Ad hoc means designed on the spot for a special purpose. 就临时创的，就是为了将就着用，为了那个应付某一个目的，为了达到某一个目的，就是临时的一个东西。And the other one worth knowing is called nonce, a nonce formation. That means it's something very similar. It's something that 是偶发的 nonce 有点偶发的意思。It's something that I came up with now on the spot, and it may never ever be used again in the history of the world. It's possible. So nonce 就是一次偶发的。So maybe somebody else will come up with it by chance, but it's not that likely. 就是一次偶发的自己创的 That's a nonce formation. So I would call this a nonce formation, but if you wanted to, you could put it in the dictionary because it's morphological. And that means the units are very closely bound, so we're going to read it with a different intonation. So listen, we're going to pause before the, because there's this big chunk coming. This is important too. If you run into another phrase like this or another formation like this, you will often pause before the, and that lets your listener know there's a big chunk coming that you're going to have to analyze piece by piece and put together into a single adjective in this case. So, the easiest click to start studying is the gentle kiss with pursed lips type. And look at my face when I'm doing it, because I give you clues in my face as well. So watch again. The easiest click to start studying is the gentle kiss with pursed lips type. Gentle kiss with pursed lips type. I separate it off, both leaving a pause after the and before type. And then I give you cues in my facial expressions and maybe with my hand. It's the gentle kiss with pursed lips. I might do something like that to show you I'm making it up, but it all belongs together in one piece. So this it does, in fact, have to do with phonetics, these little hyphens here. But now watch it as a syntactic phrase. I'm not going to make any special motions because I'm not inventing anything. I'm just describing it in normal grammar. The easiest click to start studying is the type that is like a gentle kiss with pursed lips. So you can see my presentation was different, right? These are subtle things that are often sort of passed over in language classes. Did your teacher used to talk to you about these things? Probably not, because you're too worried about memorizing vocabulary and grammar patterns, right? But now at this level, you need to refine your level of observation. 你要看很细的东西，其实它并不是真的那么细。Native speakers, non-native speakers pick up on it immediately. Even if they're not very conscious of it, they pick up on it immediately and respond to it. And the main purpose of it is to show off, say, wow, my English is really high level now. Is that the main purpose? What is the purpose of these variations, and what is the purpose of being aware of them? What good does it do? This is an important point. I'm taking a little time on this now, but this is sort of as an example that you can apply in many other situations. What good does it do? You think, well, I'm never going to be tested on this. There is no good in it. I mean, there is no point in it. Someone?
I know what people are talking about.
Louder? Go ahead. Oh, you have, okay. Say it again.
I mean, you know what people are talking about.
Who knows?
Your audience.
Your audience, there we go. That's the point I was trying to get at. It helps your listener. Whenever you give your listener some little signal that helps them decode and better understand what you're saying, you are helping your listener. And by helping your listener, are you helping yourself? How? You don't have to say it a second time. That's right. And any other benefits? Annie?
To be more easily understood.
That's right. You are more easily understood. And what good is that going to do you besides just this time? Well, even in this time. Your listener not only understands you better, but they also feel more comfortable talking to you. That's two separate issues. I understood you well this time. Sometimes I understand somebody who I don't like and it doesn't make me feel good about them. But if you are helping your listener along, you not only help them understand more easily, 会产生对你的好感. And when they're happy to talk with you, it doesn't just mean that you've got another friend on Facebook. What does it mean? If they feel good about you, what does that mean? What kind of consequences may that have?
They're willing to talk to you,
Ab-
have conversations.
Absolutely. They're more willing to talk more with you, which means if your goal is to get more information, you're going to be helping yourself get more good information. Is that right? So from this little issue of hyphens, we've gone all the way from differences in how it sounds phonetically to what is the point of noticing things at this very fine level of resolution. You're going to help the other person. You're going to help yourself. It does good for everybody. Everybody wins. It's an important point. It's not as trivial as you might think it is, comparing it to things that were emphasized in the past. Let's continue.
In a language that uses
Mm-hmm.
bilabial clicks of this sort,
This 要那么重吗?
the
How do we,
gesture
what would we emphasize? Think of what you emphasize before you read. In a language that uses bilabial clicks of this sort, or this sort, bilabial clicks of this sort, you can actually, thinking back, you could stress this because there are other kinds of clicks. This one's bilabial. We're going to learn about alveolar and other clicks. See, that's right, palatal, and etc. So in a language that uses bilabial clicks of this sort, let's do it that way, of this sort, 重音还是在 sort.
in a language that uses bilabial clicks of this sort,
There we go.
the gesture is not quite the same as that
The
used.
same, that's our 重点. We
The
have to
same.
stress it.
The gesture is not quite the same as that used by most people making a friendly kiss.
Okay, all right, I'm really slowing you down, but let's try and get in the habit of pre-reading. Mark the words where you're going to stress the word, where there is a continuation rise, where there is a pause. In addition to same being a very important content word, that's part of your main point here, what other cue do you have that same is going to get the tonic stress here, or an early tonic stress here? You've got another cue right after it. What comes after same? And that is what kind of a 词? It's a function word. What kind of function word? 连接词，对不对？它是个连接词。And where do we pause? Before 连接词, remember. So you're already getting two clues. An important content word that has to do with your main point. In addition, you've got a 连接词, a very 虚的 function word coming. So you need to plan your sentence before you read. The gesture is not quite the same. Not quite. 为什么那么重? First of all, not, remember, we consider it an honorary content word because not, although it looks like a function word, it changes the meaning to exactly the opposite of what it would otherwise be. So not we treat like a content word, not like a function word. And quite looks kind of 虚 as well. But why did I stress it so much here? This is important to know too. Remember we talked about things like this in chapter 5, which we went through quickly because I keep telling you this stuff all the time in class. And I'm telling you more now. So this is all stuff that you're not getting in the book that will, I believe, be very useful to you. The gesture is not quite the same as that used by most people making a friendly kiss. Listen to every word I stress, and I want you to tell me why I stressed each one. The gesture is not quite the same as that used by most people making a friendly kiss. Not is stressed because it's a negative. That's a good enough reason. Quite,
Because it's a bit similar to the kiss that most people make, but it's actually not, so it's very important to tell the difference between those two.
exactly. It's emphatic. That's right. You explained it well. So not quite. 差一点点. Don't you say that in Chinese sometimes? 差一点可以, because it's 差一点点. That means just a little bit. So that's what quite is doing here, just like you explained. When we are doing that, we're being emphatic. For contrast reasons, we stress it. It's not quite the same. We stop. Here's a tonic before a 连接词. As that used, that 有点重, as that used by most people. Most is stressed because it's contrastive. Making, it's because it's a 实词, a friendly kiss, both 实词, and that's good enough. Think of every single one of those words and why they're stressed, the reason. So you get in the habit of pre-reading and planning your sentence as regards intonation before you read. Then you will get really good. Then you'll be doing it like a native speaker does. Sometimes native speakers plan badly and they have to reread or re-say what they said because they weren't anticipating what was coming correctly. As a non-native speaker, you have to do it more than a native speaker. Native speakers have to do it too. You have to do it more, especially with you because you're not in the habit, I can see. You need to pay on the habit. Once you've got the habit going, it will get easier. You won't have to think so much. It will be much less effort. Okay? I want you to read that again, the gesture.
The gesture is not quite the same.
It's not.
It's not. The gesture is not quite the same.
The
as-
same.
The same.
Right. That's our tonic because whenever we've got a break there, we have to put a tonic and continuation rise there. We've cut off this part of the sentence. We've got a new part coming. Again.
The gesture is not quite the same.
Quite 不是最重.
It's not quite the same.
There you go.
The gesture is not quite the same as that used by most people.
That paused.
As that used by most people making a friendly kiss.
Everything is fine except for why did we pause after that?
Oh, that.
Why?
Stop at stop.
Sorry?
Stop at stop.
Stop at stops. It's not the only reason. That's a purely phonetic reason. This is more on the sentence level. The syntax. It's the subject. That's the reason. There's another reason. Important reason. Sylvie? There is contrast. That's true. These are all reasons why it's as strong as it is. There's a really important reason that you need to add to your list and don't forget about. Okay, now we're getting there. And something is omitted. Miranda, do you know what is omitted? We have our subject here of this phrase. Jerome, I think you said it? Which is, not just which, is. We need is. So, it's not quite the same as that which is used. Which is 省略了, which is grammatically correct. But whenever we omit something, what do? We pause. It's not gone completely. It's still there. In our heads, in our bones, it's still there. And therefore, we need to pause to show that actually it's still there, but grammar allows us to omit it, and that makes it more 简洁. It makes it more concise, but we still pause. One more time.
The gesture is not quite the same.
You're still putting more stress on quite, but we need more on same. The gesture is not quite the same.
The gesture is not quite the same as that used by...
That was our point
Oops.
just now. Wow.
Yeah.
Once more.
The gesture is not quite the same as that used by most people making a friendly kiss.
Pretty good now. As that used by. As that used by. Everyone? As that used by. No, 不要偷跑. 不要不耐烦. A lot of you are impatient. You think, 我浪费时间留个 pause 在那边. But always remember that a pause, silence is also a sound of language. No sound is also a sound of language. You have to have absence of sound in some places. That is an essential, it's a required part of the utterance. So therefore, it is also a unit of phonetic sound, the absence of sound. Okay, and here, 无声 is not just 声有声, it's important, it's required. So, is not quite the same as that used by people making a friendly kiss. People 后面也停一下, 也要停一下 because, go ahead. Not only that, that's a good reason, but we have the same reason that we just cited here.
The word when is a bit.
Who are, not when here, I would say. So, is not quite the same as that which is used by most people. You could say when they are, 你如果要加 when. Or people who are, 也可以. So, in both cases, we have omitted something. We have to pause. So, do you now see that your list of things that you have to keep in mind when you are planning a sentence is actually quite long? 你有没有觉得一大堆东西 which you probably were not thinking about before, were not aware of? And it is a bit overwhelming right when you start paying attention to it because there are so many things on the list, but it becomes habit very quickly. You just have to slow down, go through the list until it becomes second nature. Let's try again. The gesture.
The gesture is not quite the same as that used by most people making a friendly kiss.
Now you did it. Okay.
A linguistic gesture does not involve puckering the lips.
Puckering.
Puckering.
Yeah. Pluck 是拔毛 and pucker is it's not puck, it's pucker. To pucker, and I think we talked about this before. We did mention in class, everybody. Look. To pucker the lips is like this. But here we don't pucker the lips. We mentioned in class, they're just 扁扁的. So you're not making a kiss, but you are creating suction with your lips, but they're flat, okay?
They are simply compressed in a more grim manner.
In not inga, yeah.
In a more grim manner.
All right, is grim a pretty funny word here? Everybody understand the word grim? What does grim mean? Yeah, exactly. The situation is really grim. That means it's very, very bad. It's very depressing. It's very pessimistic. Now, is that isn't that kind of a funny word to be seeing in a description of what your lips are doing? Grim. 很严重. Yeah. 快要发生灾难的那种样子. Is that an expected word in a phonetics text when you're talking about what your lips are doing? No. This is another point to add to your list because this is really a colorful word. This is a very literary usage. 它是用文学修饰的手法在这边. He didn't have to pick that word. He picked it humorously. It's to be funny. It's also to describe it so you know immediately what we're talking about with a picture. All right, you're going to have to look at me again here. If the situation is grim, like somebody has just burned down a house or something like that, I would have a grim look on my face. Something like that. So when he's saying that you have a grim look on your lips, he's making you think of somebody just burned down a house and what are your lips going to do? It's a shortcut to making you do the right thing fast. At the same time, it's humorous. The original point of saying this is how we're going to read it, just like we were discussing with the previous sentence. If we're picking such a funny word, are we going to read it fast or slow? We're going to read it slowly and clearly because it's a joke. If you go over the point of the joke very fast, is anybody going to get it? You have to slow down and look at people, make sure they're understanding you, and gauge your speed according to the reaction of your audience. Now, this is a joke. That means you have to do the same thing. It's not a huge funny joke that someone's going to take to Hollywood or anything, but it still is a joke. So we're going to say it's something like this. I think you should watch me as I read. They are simply compressed in a more grim manner. What did I do? Not only stressed, but I said to look at me. What did I do with my face? Watch again. Watch my face. They are simply compressed in a more grim manner. I had a very clear gesture. What was it? Yeah, I tilted my head a bit, but what did I do right on my face? Watch again. They are simply compressed in a more grim manner. I raise my eyebrows. You need to watch that. Now, why in a phonetics class are we talking about things like this? Because they're all part of the message you're giving the person. It's partly visual. And when I raise my eyebrows, does that indicate that something is more or less interesting? Because we're opening our eyes wider to see it more clearly. And when we're interested in something, when something excites us, our 瞳孔会变大. You know that? So if you have a camera of somebody speaking, you know millisecond by millisecond what excites that person by seeing how large their pupils are. So when I do this, I'm giving you the message that my pupils are getting larger and my eyes are opening wider because this is funny and important and you should pay attention. That's another thing should go in your notes. This is important. And it's something that you probably haven't gotten in any language class or other class, yet it is really important. Now, don't overdo it. You're not a clown dancing around. But these cues, again, they make it easier for your listener. They make it more fun to listen. They make it more interactive because when they see your eyebrows going up, that's a cue. This is a joke. Are you paying attention? Haha, that was kind of cute. Grim, when you're talking about lips, that's funny. Okay, a little bit funny. Watch again. Okay, this time you're attuned to what's going to be coming. They are simply compressed in a more grim manner. In a more grim manner. Grim, this means, 这是个比喻. Grim is a 比喻. So when I raise my eyebrows, I tell you this isn't serious, but it's very useful because it still tells you immediately what I want you to know. Okay, so try that again.
They are simply compressed in a more grim manner.
Good, yeah, that was fine. Your eyebrows could use a little more action, but that was fine. That was fine.
Make a kiss of this type.
All right. Now this is even more obvious because they put it in double quotes. And that is exactly the same thing that I just described, except they made it very overt. 非常非常的显那个明显. So watch this. And a lot of people do what Carol just did. They do these air quotes. We call those air quotes. Yeah, I don't like them because they get overused and they look kind of corny. But we do it with our voice and our facial gestures. So watch. Make a kiss. Make a kiss. 是肌肉会紧绷一点 Kiss, that means 有点开玩笑 haha, kiss. Kiss 本来就会让人笑一下 right? So, make a kiss of this type. Kiss, kiss. 可能这个整个脖子会那样比较紧，然后头会伸出去 Make a kiss, that means 这是个比喻 Okay? It's just something to help you understand it better. One more time.
Make a kiss of this type.
Good, that's fine.
Say the sound when holding.
Say this sound. They're all stressed. And they need to be slow because they're all monosyllabic and we need to put pauses between.
Say this.
You're doing too fast. Listen. Listen carefully and watch everybody. Say this sound while holding a finger lightly along the lips. Say this sound. The big black bear, remember? The big black bear. Say this sound. It's not going to be say this sound. It's say this sound because all three are stressed. Each one has only one syllable. We need a pause between to separate them. Once more.
Say this sound.
Beautiful. Good.
Say this sound while holding a finger lightly along the lips.
All right, let's do it again. I believe we did it last time. Go ahead. Let's first of all make a flat-lipped kiss. All right, now put your finger there. Can you feel a little suction there? 有点吸入的感觉. So why are you kissing your finger in class? Can you feel 空气有点被吸入的感觉? Okay?
You might be able to feel that air rushes into the mouth when your lips come apart. Note that while you are making this sound, you can continue to breathe through your nose.
All right, let's try that. You don't need your finger this time. Just make the flat-lipped click and then try to breathe in and out. So,不影响. So we're not even engaging this part of the vocal tract, are we? We're not using the nasal tract at all, really. Go ahead.
This is because the back of the tongue is touching the velum. It's
Velum.
touching the velum so that the air in the mouth used in used in making the sound is separate from
Is
separated.
no.
Is separated.
No, put this in your notes, everybody. We mentioned it before, but make it one of your weekly corrections if you need to. The adjective is 这个跟这个是分开来的. This is separate from that. Separate. It's a separate issue. 形容词 separate, 2 syllables with a schwa. Separate, not 3. Separate. And ate is it. Separate. Everyone's separate. A separate issue. But here is it a 形容词? Here it's a verb. It is separated. We're using the 过去分词 here. Okay? So is separated. Separate. Because it's a verb, it's 8. So 分开来, everyone separate. That's how many syllables? 3. Please fix that in your speech. If you don't do it right now, if this is news to you, make it part of your weekly schedule, your week-by-week schedule. Separate. Separate. That ATE is 8. A, B, C to A. It's not it. It's only it if it's an adjective. Once more. Separate. Separated. Okay, again.
Is separated from the airstream flowing in and out.
Airstream. Pause. Which is 对不对？省略了。
Is separated. Is separated.
Yeah.
From the airstream
The?
from the airstream flowing in and out of the nose.
Very good. Except 2 things. Flowing 后面的字
Flowing in.
No.
In.
In. That's the first thing. And 鼻子 Nope. Wendy. Okay, how did you remember? Being corrected so many times. Okay, another correction. Watch out for S's. Do you remember from the Shida articles, there was an article about S and ED? And part of it tells you, right at the beginning, it says, in this case, is it an issue of phonetic or allophonic variation? 这里是不是 allophonic variation 的关系? For example, book, books, bag, bags. 是这样的问题吗? No. What kind of question is this? It's part of the root. It just means it's lexical. That's 字典. We have no way of knowing if it's S or Z, except by checking the dictionary or learning it correctly. There's no way you can guess based on the word itself. If it's books, we know that the S is pronounced as a voiceless 是 because K is voiceless. Bags, we know it's Z because G is voiced. Bushes, we know it's is because sh is a sibilant. Remember? But none of those rules do us any good here. If it's just a root or a stem, 是字根类的，它自己本身就是一个字，不是词尾。非词尾的话， you have to check the dictionary and then learn it correctly. Remember it. Nose, it's not nose. Nose. I don't think we have a word nose in English. Can't think of one. So everyone knows. Knows. 跟他知道是同音。He knows. Knows. His nose knows. All right? Now, we just described, okay, I know we took almost a whole hour on one paragraph, but it was full of lessons on other things that came up in the reading. So, 自己要重视这些东西，把它当一回事。在笔记里面好好整理，然后好好复习。And then the next step after that is what? Miranda, you looked up? What? And then there's a step after that. Yeah, apply. The word I want is apply. 要应用，要开始使用。Let's go on. Next reader, please. We're going on to a different click now. This is the easiest click. Everyone can do it. It's very easy to see, very easy to make. Next, the next one is also easy.
Now say the click expressing.
Do we pause after click?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Now say the click expressing disapproval, with the blade of the tongue touching the teeth and alveolar ridge.
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 Everyone, ridge. Ridge. And this is not a compound. Alveolar ridge. Alveolar ridge. Good.
Alveolar ridge. alveolar ridge. The one that authors sometimes write.
Tut, we actually read this before. 这个读过了 right? 念过吗? I remember somebody saying tut, or maybe it was earlier. 他 tut tis tis 是讲过一次，对不对？哦，那就好了。That's why I thought it was being read again. Go ahead.
Sometimes write tut tut or
Tisk tisk.
tis tis.
We say that because 因为我们在模仿文字，我们是直接念文字 just like 啧啧 oh sorry 不是啧舌啧啧 right and 啧啧 is not the sound that you really intend to make it's right but 啧啧 is the way you write in Chinese character the sound this is exactly the same thing 一模一样 so write it down perfect parallel we write tut tut and tisk tisk and we actually say it for fun but we're really referring to 这个声音 just like your 啧啧100%一模一样 okay go ahead
Tut tut and tis tis. When they wish to indicate a click sound, they do not, of course, mean tut tut or tisk tisk. Say a single click of this kind.
this watch your THs everybody some of you pronounce the as l so this
Say a single click of this kind and try to feel how your
feel pause how your tongue moves 是新的 phrase 对不对
yes. And try to feel how your tongue moves.
perfect timing very nice timing good
The positions and the position of the
字是对的
the positions of the vocal organs.
organs
Organs.
yeah.
The vocal organs is in the corresponding Zulu sound are shown in
pause end of the subject
in the corresponding Zulu
sound
sound are shown in figure 6.5. At the beginning of the sound, there are both dental and velar closures. As a result, the body of air shown in the dark shaded area in figure 6.5 is totally 6.5 is totally enclosed.
Good. Your pauses were beautiful. We also have something omitted here. The body of air shown. What's omitted? Which is. There you see. Okay, it's coming up over and over again. Whenever you've got something like that omitted, you pause. Good. Continue.
When the back and central parts of the tongue move down,
Tongue. Okay.
tongue move down, this air becomes rarefied.
There's a new word for you, everyone. Rarefied. That means 空气变稀薄. That means 空气的那个分子会变少. And then we get a 半什么状态? 半真空状态. The air becomes rarefied. 就是空气的那个分子会变少，比较薄。
This air becomes rarefied.
Rarefied. Yeah.
A click is produced when this partial vacuum is released.
Vacuum. Pause. End of the subject.
When this partial vacuum is released.
Good.
Released by lowering
Lowering. Yeah, 3 syllables.
Lowering the tip of the tongue.
Very good.
The IPA symbol
Right.
for a dental click is O.
Just keep reading.
Okay. A single vertical stroke extending both above and below the line of writing.
Very good. So we've learned our first click symbol. We learned our first click, but he didn't give us the symbol. The symbol for that is really cute. I'll tell you quickly. It's so easy to remember. It's the most distinctive of all of the IPA symbols at all, I think. That's a bilabial click. It's a circle with a little dot in it, so it looks like your lips with a little hole in the middle. So yeah, this is a bilabial click. And the next one, the kind of click, is a vertical line. Very easy. But you have to be careful because vertical lines also mean what in IPA? They're pause, right? And a longer pause is a double vertical line. So you have to make sure that it's clear what is meant here. There is a little bit of overlap there and confusion. But if you're working in a click language, it will clearly mean a click unless you've found some way to distinguish between the two, which you might need to do. All right, we finished that. We're going to go over figure 6.5 after break. Who's after Wendy? Okay, good.
Yumi. Movement of the body of air in the mouth is called a Valeric airstream mechanism.
Beautiful. Good.
Clicks are stops made with an aggressive Valeric airstream mechanism, as shown in figure 6.5. It is also possible.
Also.
It is also
Also.
also
All. 不是 all. All. Look. All. Not all. Don't round. All.
It is also possible to use this mechanism to cause the airstream to flow outward by raising the tongue and squeezing the
Again.
and squeezing
Not. There's no R in there. Squeeze.
and squeezing the contained body of air.
Body.
But this latter
Who's above this?
This latter possibility is not actually used in any known language.
All right. This is a shorter one, but it's got some solid pieces of information in it. First of all, we noticed that we could make clicks and breathe at the same time. 一点都没有干扰到, right? So, try with and breathe in and out. There's no problem to breathe while you're making either of those clicks. The reason is because we are now using not a pulmonic airstream mechanism. The air to produce a click is not coming straight from the lungs. We are also not using what's the second kind of airstream mechanism we've just learned about? Glottalic. It's not glottalic either. So what is it? It's the third kind. And this is the last kind we're going to learn about in this chapter. It's called a Valeric. And Valeric means that the back of your tongue is touching your velum, your soft palate. And that's the starting point of the little column of air that we are working with. 我们要用的那团空气，它的后面就是最极端的地方，就是舌后碰到软腭. That's the outer limit in the back of this pocket of air we're going to use to make a click. And then the front part that's going to enclose it, 因为我们需要一个前后都封起来的一团空气，后面它封后面的就是舌后碰到软腭，那封前面的是什么呢？ In the case of the second kind of click, in that kind of click, in this case it's bilabial, but for this, it's dental, right? The tip of the tongue is touching the back of the upper teeth, and that is sealing off the other end of the pocket of air we're using to produce the click. Everyone's clear? We've got a pocket of air, 就是一团空气. The back limit, or the back sealing, it's sealed in back with the back of the tongue and the soft palate. It's sealed in front with the tip of the tongue and the back of the teeth. Everyone's clear now what we're talking about? It's a pocket of air, 一团空气，两边都要封起来，要不然会漏气, right? So, we're sealing it in back with the back of the tongue touching the soft palate. We're sealing it in front with the tip of the tongue touching the back of the teeth. And we're going to use the air that we enclose by sealing off those two ends. Is that clear now? This is the nature of a click. We're using the dental click as an example because it's a pretty clear example. Not so confusing. Bilabial works the same. We're just going to use the dental click for an example. And when we use that pocket of air sealed by the back of the tongue and the velum and something in the front, could be anything in the front, including bilabial, we call that a velaric airstream mechanism. So you know that we now have, or you notice that we now have 3 different adjectives for velum. What are they? Velar, velaric, and velic. We also have a velic closure, do you remember? And all of them have a different usage, but they're all an adjective for velum. But in phonetics, that's no problem for you. You know exactly what's going on. It actually helps you because when you see the adjective, you know what they're talking about right away. If they're talking about velar, they are simply talking about what? Placement of the articulatory organs. Usually it's the back of the tongue. So the placement of the articulatory organs. 某一个东西会碰到 velum. That's called velar. Yeah, this is a velar stop, for example. So 舌后色音 in Chinese. The second one we learned is velic. We talk about a velic closure. In that case, we're talking about whether we are using what kind of air or what kind of air. Nasal or oral. 就是 nasal 和 oral 的对比的时候，我们用 velum 的哪个形容词？ Velic. All right, here's the third kind. When we're talking about velaric, we're talking about a pocket of air to make a click. It's a velaric airstream mechanism. 3个不同的用法，都一样是 velum 的形容词，可是在不同的领域，它指的是不同的机制、不同的用途。That's all clear? All right, all of them are just simply adjectives of velum, but each one is talking about a different process. When we are moving air in the mouth, simply between those 2 points, the back of the tongue closing off the air with the velum, and something in the front, doesn't matter what, we are using a velaric airstream mechanism. 那是第3种，考试一定会考。So make sure that the 3 different airstream mechanisms are really clear in your head. I think they are. It seems like you understand them fine. Clicks are stops. So clicks are a type of stop. They're not plosives, though. And they're not implosives. They're a type of stop because we're cutting off the air and then we're letting it go, which is why nasal stops are not stops. We don't do that. We're not cutting off the air and letting it go. We're letting the air go continuously. We're not doing anything to cut it off, and there's no burst. So nasals are not stops, to repeat that, because here we have yet another comparison. These are a kind of stop. First of all, the air can go one of 2 ways. It's either egressive, coming from the lungs and going outwards, or it can be ingressive, which means it's going from the outside in. Those are 2 different directions. That's separate. Keep that separate from the airstream mechanisms. Pulmonic, glottalic, velaric. 那是分开的另外一个东西。这3个都可以是 ingressive, 也可以是 egressive. So 完全另外一个参数。Egressive from X, going out, ingressive going in. Now, of the airstream mechanisms we've learned so far, which are egressive? Name 2. Pulmonic stops and glottalic stops, or we call them ejectives. Those are egressive. And what are the 2 ingressive ones we've learned? Right, let's do implosives first. Clicks are probably more fun and easier. Implosives came first, though. So implosives and clicks are ingressive. Although implosives are a little bit ambiguous because we've got air coming out when we're voicing them. So this, first of all, is an ingressive, velaric airstream mechanism. The air is going to be sucked in, but only so far as what? It's not going down to the lungs. It's not going down to the glottis. It's only going as far as the air stops where? The buck stops where? Go ahead. The velum and the back of the tongue. It stops there. It's only going that far. All right, so that explains ingressive and velaric airstream mechanism. And it's also possible to use it to cause the airstream to flow outward by raising the tongue and squeezing the contained body of air. But We don't know of any language in the world that uses this. So watch now and listen. This is a normal click. I'm sucking in. I could also use a Valeric airstream mechanism and push air out instead of sucking it in. Sorry, it's going to become an ejective. But an ejective starts at the glottis. So if you use a Valeric airstream mechanism, not go down to your glottis and squeeze air out. It's like a very shortened and cut off ejective. Instead of, they go all the way down here. But if you only go to the velum and the back of the tongue where they are sealed off and push air out, it's a perfectly viable sound. We could use it, but nobody does. If we use a sound like that, we use the glottis. We don't use a Valeric airstream mechanism. So that part is clear now, right? Good. They're going to describe another click in the next paragraph. So what we're going to do is we're now going to go to figure 6.5 and read through it, and you are going to need to write all of this out in the exercises. So become familiar with the order in which things are described and what they describe and how they describe it. Who's our next reader? Go ahead. Figure 6.5.
The sequence of events in a dental click.
In a dental click,
Initially, both the tip and the back.
dental click, I'm sorry, it's a period. Okay, so dental click. It's not a sentence, it's just a description. It's like a title. My fault.
Dental click. Initially, both the tip and the back of the tongue are raised, enclosing the small pocket of air indicated by the dark shading.
Everybody see the dark shading. The dark shading, let's look here. You can see that it's completely black, and then under that it's dotted. It's gray under that. Which one are we talking about? Black or the gray? The black. We're only talking about the black. When we start out, we have a tiny pocket of air. The tongue is up pretty high, and we've got a pocket of normal air there. We've cut it off, made it into a little pocket cut off from the outside air and the air below. So it's just that black area, not the gray, that we're talking about now, okay?
When the center of the tongue moves down, the larger, lightly shaded cavity is formed.
Cavity.
Cavity is formed.
All right, what's happening now? This is the crucial step. We started out with our tongue pretty high up, and we've got a little pocket of air. Everybody watch now. This is my tongue here, and I'll do it with both hands. All right, here's my tongue, and then here is my hard palate. We've got some air here. This is the tip of the tongue. This is the back of the teeth. This is the back of the tongue. This is the soft palate or the velum. So we start out like this. We've got a little pocket of air. When we make a click, we pull our tongue down. So this space is now bigger. But do we have any more air in this space? It's still the original amount of air. This is a normal pocket of air with normal air pressure, just like the pressure outside in the air around us. But if we make the space larger, without letting any air in, the air is going to become it's going to become rarefied. Very good. 会变得很薄. Right? So with the rarefied air in there, we now have air pressure. What kind of air pressure? It's negative because the air on the outside has a higher pressure than the air in this pocket here. So it's going to be pushing in, right? In here, it's going to be a negative air pressure. It's lower than the air around it. And when that happens, we have, again, a partial vacuum. And what happens when, everybody watch, when we pull the tip of our tongue away from the back of the teeth, what's going to happen? The air will rush in because it's under it's at a much higher level of pressure than the air inside. So it's going to rush in like it's going to be sucked in. Okay? That's how a click works. That's all clear now? I think the mechanism is, once you see that, it's pretty easy to understand. Continue.
Then the tip moves down to the position shown by the dashed line, and a little later, the back of the tongue comes down to the position shown by the dashed line.
Okay, I've actually simplified it. This is a basic click. We're going to learn that clicks involve more because we've now pulled the tongue tip down to let the air in. And after we've done that, what do? Then we what? Lower the back of the tongue. So we sealed it off in front and back. Which sealing off do we open first? The front or the back? 封起来的地方是哪一个先开？是前还是后？ The front is first open. And then the back, after the front is open and the air has rushed in and made that noise, then we let the back down and get ready for the next sound. That is a very basic click. In fact, there's all kinds of things you can do with the back of the tongue. We've only started. But don't worry about it. This is how a click works, and that's what you need to know. Can you continue and read 1, 2, 3, 4, and how's it go? It goes up to 4. Okay. These are the steps in making a click now.
Number 1, back of tongue raised to form velar closure,
And another
tongue
one.
tip up to form front closure.
So they use the same number for them because they happen at about,
The same time.
very good. And then 2,
Number 2, when both the anterior and the velar closure are maintained, the body of the tongue moves down, decreasing the pressure of the air in the front part of the mouth.
okay, good. But watch out. There are 3 words here I want to point out. First of all, body has a very long it's not buddy. Everyone, body. Body. Don't worry about exaggerating it because most time when you say buddy, which means 伙伴 or 朋友. So body, once more. Body of the tongue. Good. The second one is decreasing. Is that S, an S or a Z? It's S, so don't make it a Z. And don't make the E too long. And I've mentioned this in another class. Decreasing, don't say decreasing. I remember I just reviewed the video. If you say decreasing, we'll hear the S as a Z because we only make a vowel that long before a voice sound, okay? So make the vowel not too long and make sure the S stays in S. Usually I don't have to tell you that. Usually you say nose instead of nose. But here decreasing is wrong. It should be decreasing. Everyone, decreasing. Decreasing. Make the E quite short. Decreasing. And the next one was the same problem. Pressure. It's not pressure. 就是娱乐 is pleasure. Everyone, pleasure. But 压力 is pressure. You know, when you're under pressure, you have to get things done fast. Pleasure, you can take your time. So that will help you remember it. Everyone, pressure. Pleasure. Pressure. All right, so I made corrections here. Did everybody follow that? Well, both the anterior, what does anterior mean? Right, everybody remember that because it's a fancy word. And posterior is more common. We use it more often. Posterior is back, anterior is front. So anterior just means front, and the velar closure are maintained. And can you say maintained again? You said it so beautifully.
Are
Just the word maintained.
maintained.
He says it perfectly. So for those of you who still have trouble with this, who are saying maintained, you can get help from Jerome. Maintained. Maintained. Everyone, maintained. Maintained. Perfect. The body of the tongue moves down, decreasing the pressure of the air in the front part of the mouth. So this is that step where your tongue goes down and the air becomes very shibao in it. Okay, it becomes rarefied. And?
Number 3, tongue tip lowered so that air rushes into the mouth.
There we go. That's it. That's a click. Next reader, please.
The sound described in Figure 6.5 is a dental click. If a partial vacuum is released by lowering the side of a tongue,
Lowering.
lowering
Good.
the side of a tongue, a lateral click, the sound sometimes used for encouraging horses
For
is for encouraging horses,
那音不清楚. For encouraging horses,
for encouraging horses
that's better.
is produced.
Yeah.
The phonetic symbol is a pair of vertical strokes, again going both above and below the line of writing.
Below 了吗?
below the line
There we go.
of writing.
Yes.
Clicks can also be made with
Also.
also
Yep.
also be made with a tip, not the blade of the tongue, touching the posterior
Pass 没事 pass.
posterior part.
Posterior.
Posterior
Just like interior, anterior, exterior, posterior.
posterior part of the alveolar ridge.
Alveolar ridge.
Alveolar ridge.
LV, not V. Everyone, alveolar ridge. Two vowels you need to watch out for. It's not alveolar, it's alveolar. Ridge is not ridge. So sometimes you get them just backwards. Alveolar ridge. It should be alveolar ridge. Now,第二点是 it's not a compound. It is not a compound. It's just a plain old adjective noun phrase. The alveolar ridge. Everyone? The alveolar ridge. Good.
The phonetic symbol for a click of this kind is
Kind. You said kind. It should be kind.
this kind
Right. Watch the N. Yes.
is an exclamation point, this time resting on the line of writing.
Say on.
On
It's not on. It's on.
on
No, you're saying 不是舌根音是舌尖音 a-n
on
yeah
on the line of writing
of not of
of writing.
right.
These three possibilities all occur in Zulu and in the neighboring language.
Hosa. We've just learned it. Let's use it right away because the first sound of the name of the language is a lateral click that we've just learned. It's hosa. Hosa. And it's got aspiration. You can see the H there. Hosa. Hosa. Okay, I'm not saying it like a native, but it's close enough. It's pretty close. So we now have learned our third click. Our first click, bilabial. Our second one, dental. Now we've got an alveolar or post-alveolar click, and it's, oh, sorry. That one is, and the next one is lateral. We've got 4 clicks here. So the lateral one is, the body of your tongue is touching your hard palate, and then air comes out the sides. Let's come back to that. Let's make sure that we already know the first two. The alveolar one is easy. So if we can do a dental one, you just put your tongue back a little further, the one with the exclamation point. And it says it's the posterior part of the alveolar ridge, so post-alveolar. So it's, no, not, 不是这样，是单独一个音，不是, I'm sorry. That has 2 sounds. It has 2 sounds. We have only one here. It's like a dental click, but your tongue is further in and it makes a louder noise. All right. Then we have the one with the double vertical line. That is the lateral click, and that's the one that's used in hosa. It's the sound we use to encourage horses in English anyway. It's, you have no trouble with the other 3 we just practiced, but lateral, maybe you need some work. One at a time, I want to see if you got it. That's dental. So, this is the hard palate, and this is the tongue. Your tongue is touching here on the hard palate, and the air is going to come out the 2 sides. You're making it central. You'll need to work on it. I think you got it, okay. If you're hearing a sound like, then it's not it. It's central. We need to let the air out the side. 要贴住，舌头就不要离开，贴住中间。So when you release the click, your tongue is still stuck up there. 解除了以后，你的舌头还是粘在上面，舌头就不要动了。See? My tongue is not moving. I'm letting the air out the sides. So 有没有看到舌头还粘在上面？就是舌头不要离开你的硬腭哦。Try it again. Okay, don't have it yet. You can practice later. 应该有口水声. It's kind of a sloppy click. And that sounds pretty good. Okay, that sounds kind of dental to me. I think you've got it. It's going to be loud. Actually, they're all loud. I just don't make them loud because I'm not a native speaker. But keep your tongue up there. Don't move it. Okay, again. I can't tell if it's right or not. Okay. It's going to sound 有口水声. Okay, that sounds kind of dental too. Okay, most of you don't have it, which means I guess you don't use it in your culture for horses, and you don't have anything to do with horses besides. But when we're children, we play that we're riding on horses. We pretend we're cowboys and Indians and we ride horses. So we always go. So we learn it and use it a lot from the time we're kids here in America. That's one to work on, okay? The other ones you're fine. All of the other ones so far. Bilabial, dental, post-alveolar. Those are fine, no problem at all. But for the lateral, you will have to work on it. Let's continue.
Some of the
Not oaf, everybody of.
of
This one will have to get special work to make it habit because it's so common. That means it's a deeply ingrained habit. So some of, 连音 some of. Okay, go.
some of
不要用 glottal stop 来分开，连音 some of. Good.
Some of the Aboriginal South African
Aboriginal.
Aboriginal
Otherwise, it's not it's
Ab-
Otherwise, it'll sound like original. Aboriginal.
Aboriginal South African languages
African 有 n.
African languages such as Nama and
Ko.
Ko.
Now that one looks really confusing because it's got how many diacritics? Basically, it's got 3 diacritics and an X, which means we have no idea how to say it. So I checked online, and we just pronounced it ko. So never mind everything else, it's pronounced ko. Yeah.
Have an even wider variety of click articulations.
Again.
Ko spoken in
Just a minute. Articulations.
articulations.
You have a lot of friction you don't need. Articulations.
Articulations.
That's fine. And the other one was an N that I didn't hear clearly. Even wider.
And even wider.
All right, I point that out because in Taiwan English, remember I told you about 万一 and 115. You're not touching your tongue, right? 万一, you say 万一, 115. 舌头根本没有点到. A lot of you bring it over into English and you say things like, listen and watch, even wider, even wider. Correct or not correct? Not correct. I need an N there, even wider. We don't have that rule in English. The rule works fine in Mandarin. It does not apply to English. And even wider. When you see a final N, make an extra effort to pronounce the nasal, okay?
Have an even wider
Perfect.
variety
Good.
of
Good.
click articulations. Ko spoken in
Oh, pause. The comma tells you to stop, right?
Ko spoken in Botswana is one of the few languages that have bilabial clicks.
Slow down a bit. One of the few languages. Why do I need a pause? No, few languages belong to the same phrase. That's not the reason here. It was a reason you gave earlier in the wrong place. Somebody did. Because? Nope. We've got a whole list. You can just 随便乱猜一个. But each one has their own reason, and it's a real reason. 不是随便来的. Is one of the few languages. Listen carefully. We won't say is one of the few languages. If we say one of the few languages, few goes by too fast, and few is one of the main points of the sentence. When it goes by too fast, we don't catch it. We think it's not important. Emphasizing through stress is really, really important in facilitating listener comprehension. Is one of the few languages. We say is one of the few languages because we are emphasizing in addition. The other reason is How many stresses in a row do we like in English? We don't like any, right? In a row, it should be, yeah, you can say one. We like one stress, unstressed syllables, one stress, unstressed syllables. And if we don't have unstressed syllables to put there, we put a pause there instead. So that's the reason. Few, lang starts with a stressed syllable. We need to pause. There's a good reason. Okay, try again.
Is one of the few languages.
Pause more. Is one of the few languages.
Is one of the few languages that have bilabial clicks.
Okay, that was perfect timing. That was good.
A sort of thin, straight lips kiss sound, for which the symbol is
This, right. And I've already showed you. A circle with a dot. That's easy to remember. It's probably the easiest to produce, but it's also the least common of all the clicks. 这是很罕见的. However, one language does have it. Which language is it? Ko, spoken where? Botswana. And there are mainly 3 countries of Africa where you find click languages. Botswana, Namibia, South Africa. 这3个地方. Botswana, Namibia, South Africa. That's where the Bushmen are still to be found. And what do you think is probably going to happen with many of the Bushman languages? They got pushed further and further south by the more aggressive Bantus, but now these countries are developing fast. And what's probably going to happen to the Bushmen? Do you think it's a reasonable lifestyle to live in the desert and not have even a pool for water? You have to dig up roots and scrape them to get water. Does that sound like a lifestyle that would appeal to you? All right, let's say that your grandparents and your parents live that way, but you're a young person and your friends have iPhones and they drive cars. Do you want to scrape roots to get water? You're not going to be willing to do that as soon as you compare yourself to other people. And South Africa, for example, has become very, very wealthy. I heard a BBC report where young people would buy very expensive sports shoes and then ruin them to show their friends how rich they were. They would ruin expensive clothes and shoes. Now that's pretty disgusting, isn't it? But it's typical human behavior. And this is a little bit off topic, but since we're on it, there's something called potlatch in American Indian culture, and Native American culture. They have these huge gatherings where they give many, many gifts to other people. They collect a lot of wealth. They give it away, or sometimes they burn it. It's in our nature somewhere. We humans have it in us. When we have too much, we're going to show it off, and we're going to waste. So it's in many cultures, including our own. You see waste in our own culture. It's really disgusting how many things, like, 你用的这个饮料杯，你等一下要怎么处理? Is that any better? That's a precious earth resource as well. It's in our nature, but it doesn't mean we have to follow our nature. We can treat the earth better than that. Well, anyway, so young people are obviously not going to want to keep on living like that. It's a very hard life. Whatever you say, it's a difficult life. They are going to move to the cities, look for work, and do the people understand Bushman languages in the cities? No, they're going to have to speak English or Afrikaans or maybe Zulu or some other mainstream language. All right, so the Bushman languages in general, as far as I know, tend to be endangered. Maybe not all of them, but many of them are endangered. Okay, let's continue. Who's next?
In the production of click sounds.
Okay, everybody, click sounds.
Click sounds.
Good.
There is a velar closure.
Velar closure. Here it is not a 复合词.
Velar closure.
Mm-hmm.
And the body of air
Good.
involved is in front of this closure.
Very good. Involve 后面的 pause 非常好. That was good.
That is in the front of the mouth. Consequently, it is possible to produce a velar sound with a glottalic or pulmonic airstream mechanism while a click is being made. You can demonstrate this for yourself by humming continuously while producing clicks.
All right, let's pause there for a minute. When we were looking at figure 6.5, I said this is simplifying it a bit because there are other possibilities. You can combine clicks with other sounds. And here is the beginning of that explanation. You can combine a click with a nasal. Because you're cutting off the air at the soft palate, you can still do nasal things behind the soft palate, right? You can have your soft palate down and you can hum, which is all right, or you can just use an NG sound. So try to make dental clicks and then make an sound at the same time. So, any problem? No. Those are two separate mechanisms. You've got a velaric mechanism to make the click, and is pulmonic or glottalic? It's pulmonic. It's just going from, it's coming from the lungs and going through the nose. So you can make a nasal while you are making a velaric click. Let's go on.
The humming corresponds to a long a voice velar nasal. We may symbolize the co-occurrence of a nasal and a click by writing a tie bar over the two symbols. Thus, a dental click and a velar nasal will be written In transcribing click languages, the tie bar is usually left off, and simultaneity
You're
is
close.
assumed. Simultaneity is assumed.
Okay, you read very nicely. The adjective is simultaneous. Everyone, simultaneous. Simultaneous. And the noun is simultaneity. Simultaneity. And you've got a velar nasal here that you're producing at the same time as you're producing a dental click. So we put a tie bar on the top to show that it's the same sound. It's not and then but Everybody? All right. Now you can have all kinds of combinations of things going on in the back together with the click, and that's where clicks get complicated. Let's go on.
Miranda, even if the soft palate is raised so that air cannot flow through the nose, the nose, the pulmonic airstream mechanism can still be used to keep the vocal folds vibrating for a short time during a click.
Okay, during in American, not during.
During a click. When the back of the tongue is raised for a click, and there is also a velic closure. Closure.
Good.
The articulators are in the position for g. A voice dental click of this kind is therefore a combination of g and may be symbolized
Like this.
omitting the tie bar.
All right. Now, let's try that. We've already done, it's just one step beyond what we've already done with the nasal. So if we have a velar nasal plus a dental click, it's nga, nga, nga. Let's just turn the ng into a g. It's a small step. We just have to shut off our nasal cavity by raising our soft palate. So ga, 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 ga. We can do the same thing. Let's go on.
Annie, at this point, we should know
At this
that
point,
at this point,
not at this, at this.
at this
Good.
point, we should know that strictly speaking,
Strictly speaking,
the transcription of clicks always requires a symbol for both the click itself,
click,
the click,
not click, click.
click itself, and for the activities associated with the velar closure.
All right, so the point is that we need two symbols because something's happening in front, something else is happening in back. We need to mark both of them because the activity in the front doesn't always imply the same activity in the back. There may be, for example, it may be a ng velar nasal or a g velar oral stop, okay?
We transcribe the voiced click with a g plus the click symbol, and the nasalized click with plus the click symbol. We should
With
also
ng plus the click symbol because it's repeated.
with n,
Ng.
n
Uh-huh.
with plus the click symbol. We should also transcribe the voiceless click with k plus the click symbol. It is perhaps not necessary for a beginning student in phonetics to be able to produce all sorts of different clicks in regular words.
All.
All.
Good.
But you should be able to produce at least a simple click followed by a vowel. Try saying k followed by a. Make a vowel as soon after the
As
click.
soon after the click,
As soon after the click.
after, not after. As soon after the click.
As soon after
Mm-hmm.
the click as possible.
Possible.
So that it sounds like a single syllable. Ka. Using the convention that regards the k and the click as simultaneous, as if there were a tie bar.
Very good. Okay. So now we're going to have a different possibility in the back. We had a velar nasal ng, we had a velar voiced stop g, and now it's going to be a velar voiceless stop k. So first of all, try nga. Nga. Let's try just the nasal and then put the vowel at the end. Nga. Nga. All right, try it with a voiced g. Ga. 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 Make a g. Try to make it as close to the click as possible. Ga. Ga. All right? Now let's devoice it and just make it ga. 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 Okay? No big deal. You're good. Let's go on.
Bella. As a more challenging exercise, learn to produce clicks between vowels. Start by repeating ka a number of
Ka.
times.
Ga.
Ka.
Mhm.
A number of times so that you are saying
Ga. 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 You can do it. Okay, I'm not promising that this is perfect, but just so you know how to do it. So when you encounter a language like this, you will know how to go about it, and then you can 可以微调.
now say dental, post-alveolar, and lateral clicks in sequences such as ka, ka,
Okay. Ga. 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 And ga. Ga. These will take some practice. Continue.
Make sure there are no pauses between the vowels and the clicks. Now try to keep the voicing going. Keep.
Not
keep.
keep. Keep.
Keep.
Yep.
Keep the voicing going throughout the
Keep the
se-
voicing going throughout 是介系词, right?
Keep the voicing going throughout the sequences so that you produce
Ga. 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 Actually, it took me a long time to learn these, so be patient with yourself. I'm not being impatient with you. So ga and ga, ga, and ga. You need to work on your lateral click first. So of all the things that I think you should work on, I think you kind of got the nasal idea together with the dental click fine. You do that fine. But many of you don't get the lateral click. So Carol has got the lateral click. You can get some help from Carol again. Learn the lateral click first. These other things are nice to learn, but you need to learn the basic clicks first. To me, I think that's more important. Go on.
last, produce nasalized clicks, perhaps with nasalized vowels on either side.
Nga. Everyone? Nga. 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 And nga. Nga.
Again, with the nasal being simultaneous with the click.
Simultaneous.
Simultaneous
Good, yeah.
with the click. Repeat with all the vowels.
Very good. Okay, excellent. Let's go on. This one will tell you how they deal with clicks in spelling in these languages. Because these languages were not written down in most cases until what happened? Right, until the missionaries came to Africa. And that was still really popular when I was a kid because I went to a Lutheran school. And that was, I think, my first 志愿 or my first occupational goal, what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wanted to be a medical missionary. A medical missionary. That's what I originally wanted to do. 我信得很迷那个时候. And in addition, I thought by being a doctor you could help people. I wanted to do what would help people most. A lot of us have this 理想, like right now. A lot of my students, they think, I don't want to be like Ms. Chung. I don't want to tell people to fix their pronunciation. I want to really help people. And they say, well, some of them went into 语言障碍治疗 because they felt that would help people who are more in need. They thought that this 工作真的是蛮无聊. I like it, actually. It's fine. And I think I'm helping people. But you really have these 理想, especially at this age. I see it in my students right at this period. And like you want to help Guer and stuff like that. But 经常是3分钟热. That's what happens. You can help people by doing many things. The person who sold you your sandwich on the street for breakfast, are they helping? They're making a big contribution. The people who are cleaning our rooms, all of those are contributions. The important thing is that you like what you're doing. That's more important. You like what you're doing and you're somehow helping people, that's great. So I wanted to be a medical missionary. And then I found that I was always going to the language part of the library. That's how I discovered I like languages. I think I was already in high school. 每一次去图书馆是不小心到 Berlitz 那里去 teach yourself Russian. Then I realized, I think I like this stuff. I must, 我是不知不觉，我是后知后觉的那种人。我那时候才发现 I like languages. And then I thought when I was a kid, I wanted to be a medical missionary because of one of the scenes in a movie they showed us of missionaries working in Africa. They had an African sitting on one side of the table, the missionary on the other side, and he had a little box of index cards. And he would point to a pencil, and then he would ask him, and he would say the word for pencil, and he'd write it down. Then he'd point to the table. He'd hear the word for table, and he wrote it down. And he'd repeat it. Is this correct? No. Is it correct? No. Yes, you got it. I realized that's what I wanted to do. I didn't really want to be a doctor, and I didn't really want to be a missionary. I wanted to be a linguist. I didn't find that out till much later. That scene is still very strong in my mind. I told my father about it, and I was all excited. And he thought, well, just a naive kid, wanting to help the world or something like that. But actually, that, I think, had an influence on me. Writing down an unknown language, I thought that was just the coolest sounding thing in a place like Africa. All right. Let's see. Did we finish the paragraph? Yes, we did, didn't we? No, we just started. Who was our reader? It was Bella. And then, Vivian is next. Okay, the bell is wrong. We're done. So you start next time. We're going to talk about how they spell. And as I said, the reason this came up is because many of these languages were not written at all. Some of them may still not be written as far as I know, if they're minority languages. So when they wrote them, they needed to represent the clicks just like tones had to be represented in Chinese in transcription. You've got so many homophones without tones. Even with tones, you've got lots of homophones. So for these languages, they needed a way to represent the clicks, and we'll talk about how they did that next time. Okay? We'll see you on Wednesday, and be prepared for short dictation, and we'll also discuss vowels and consonants.